I didn't see it coming. That's what I kept telling myself in the beginning, like it would somehow make the pain easier to hold. Like if it had truly come out of nowhere, then I wasn't stupid for not anticipating it. But the truth is I did see it. I just refused to believe it. The way Aaron had stopped touching me casually. No hand on the small of my back when we walked into a room, no lazy kiss on the cheek before bed. The way he checked his phone constantly like he was waiting for a message that mattered more than anything I had to say. The way his voice changed when he said my name, less warm, more like a reminder. Still, nothing prepared me for the way he left. It was a Thursday morning. I was standing at the stove flipping pancakes, something I used to do every week when we were still in love. I was humming, God, I still remember the song, and he walked in, poured himself coffee and sat at the table without a word. Then out of nowhere he said, I think we should separate. Just like that. No build-up. No fight. No warning. I turned slowly, the spatula still in my hand, waiting for the punchline. But there wasn't one. He didn't even look up. He just stared into his mug like it had all the answers I didn't. What? I said. Not angrily. Not confused. Just empty. He finally looked at me. His face was unreadable. I've been thinking about this for a while, he said. We've both changed. You know that. I felt like I was floating above my body, like I was watching the scene from a distance. My husband, my partner of 13 years, was sitting at our kitchen table, ending our marriage between bites of toast. Is there someone else? I asked. It was the only logical question. He hesitated just long enough to confirm everything. I didn't plan it that way, he said. But yes. Her name's Alicia. Her name. Like that was supposed to mean something to me. He stood, adjusted his watch, and continued as if he were discussing logistics for a business trip. I've already signed the lease on an apartment for you. It's in a good neighborhood. Close to the market you like. I'll cover rent for a few months. Give you time to figure things out. To figure things out. Like I was some side project he was politely returning to the shelf. He kissed me on the forehead, honestly kissed me, and walked out the front door with a duffel bag and his car keys. That was it. No argument. No apology. No asking if I was okay. Just silence. I stood there for almost an hour. The pancakes burned. The coffee went cold. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I just kept thinking, he really thinks I'm helpless. And in that moment I was. But not for long. The first few days after Aaron left were a fog. I moved into the apartment he'd arranged. Bare walls, stiff furniture, beige everything. It looked like a model unit, the kind of place no one really lived in. A place for passing through, not for building a life. He'd stocked the fridge with a few basics. Milk, eggs, bottled water. There was a folded check on the counter. A note in his handwriting. This should help while you get on your feet. No apology. No goodbye. Just a transaction. I stared at that check for hours like it might rewrite itself if I looked long enough. But it didn't. It just sat there, proof of how little he thought of me. Not even enough respect to have a real conversation. Just money. Just instructions. I didn't touch it. I didn't unpack for 3 days. I slept on top of the bed with a jacket for a blanket. I couldn't stand the thought of settling in. Every time I opened a drawer or touched a light switch, it reminded me I wasn't at home. I had been evicted from the life I spent over a decade helping build. At first I cried for hours at a time. Then I stopped crying altogether. Not because I healed. Because I was numb. The worst part wasn't the loneliness. It was the silence. No one called. No one checked in. Friends we had built together suddenly vanished, like they were afraid betrayal might be contagious. I knew he was telling people whatever made him look better. That we had grown apart. That it had been mutual. That I'd always wanted something different. But the truth was he had planned this. The more I looked back, the more the signs became obvious. There had been distance for over a year. Late-night work calls. New clothes. A sudden gym membership. Weekend trips that were just business. And I had believed him. Because I wanted to. I had made my life about him. I coordinated around his schedule, cheered his wins, endured his silence. I was the one who remembered his assistant's birthday, who bought his mother gifts, who planned the anniversary dinners he often forgot. And now I was sitting in a borrowed apartment, disposable. But even in that hollow space, something inside me refused to die. I didn't know what it was yet. It wasn't rage. It wasn't clarity. It was something quieter. more patient. Something waiting. I found the credit card statement in a stack of mail he'd accidentally forwarded to the apartment. It was in his name, but we used to share the account. I shouldn't have opened it. But I did. At first it looked normal. Groceries, gas, a few restaurant charges. Then I saw it. A 5-star hotel in San Francisco. A jewelry purchase at a boutique I'd never heard of. A spa retreat. All on weekends when he'd told me he was on business trips. There were 2 dinner charges, same night, same location, 15 minutes apart. 2 people. 2 checks. 1 lie. My heart stopped. Then it started again, slower, heavier. And that's when I knew, this wasn't a falling out. This wasn't drifting apart. He hadn't just abandoned me. He had replaced me. And he thought I would simply fade away, say thank you for the check, and disappear. He had no idea what I was capable of. But he was about to find out. I didn't act immediately. That's what made it work. Aaron always saw me as reactionary. He believed I was ruled by emotion, that I didn't know how to handle conflict without unraveling. And maybe once upon a time that had been true. I used to take everything personally. I used to try and fix what was breaking even if I was the only one holding the pieces. But not this time. This time I observed. The credit card statement was just the start. Once I knew her name, Alicia, it wasn't hard to find more. Her social media was public, like most people who relied on attention for identity. Her world was filtered in pinks and soft lights, endless brunches, expensive dinners, rooftop selfies. And Aaron was in more of them than he probably realized. Never tagged but visible. His watch, his hands, his reflection in windows. I screenshotted everything. Then I started building a timeline. Dates. Locations. His alibis versus reality. I found messages he forgot to delete on our old shared iCloud account. He never unlinked his phone properly. The sync brought in fragments. Screenshots he'd sent her, hotel confirmations, a few blurry selfies of the 2 of them in bed. Felt like being cut open slowly. But I didn't cry this time. I took notes. I saved files. Backed them up. Printed copies. Because I knew I'd need more than anger. I needed evidence. The next step was harder, facing myself. I sat down at the small table in that empty apartment and asked the question I had been avoiding. Who was I now? I had spent 13 years orbiting someone else. My jobs, my friendships, even my wardrobe had slowly adjusted around Aaron's preferences. I had traded career ambitions for his calendar. I had put my instincts on mute to keep our image intact. And for what? A man who walked out mid-pancake. It wasn't enough to want justice. I had to want something for myself too. So I dug out my old laptop from the closet. It was dusty, slow, but it still worked. I opened the resume file I hadn't touched in 6 years. My fingers hovered over the keyboard like they didn't recognize me. But then they remembered. I updated it line by line. I didn't shrink from the gap. I reframed it. Personal sabbatical. Independent project consultant. Home management and private event coordination. All true. All mine. Then I called a name I hadn't dialed in over a decade. Maria, my old mentor from my first marketing job. She had once told me, if you ever come back, you won't start from scratch. You'll start where you left off, with me behind you. She answered on the second ring. Is this really you? She said, surprised. It is, I replied. I told her everything. Not about the affair. Just the facts. That I was ready. That I was rebuilding. That I wanted in. Maria didn't hesitate. I have a client who needs someone now. It's remote. It pays well. It's yours if you want it. I sent my portfolio that night. 2 days later, I was officially a freelance consultant. And just like that, money started coming in. Not a lot, not yet, but enough. I had momentum. I had purpose. And the best part? Aaron didn't know any of it. He thought I was licking my wounds in silence, slowly fading into irrelevance. But while he was whining and dining Alicia in borrowed suits and fake peace, I was writing a new script. One where I didn't just survive. One where I took everything he didn't know he'd given me, and used it to burn his perfect life to the ground. The power in moving silently is that no one sees you coming. Aaron certainly didn't. While he was parading his new life with Alicia across rooftop lounges and curated vacations, I was rebuilding my foundation brick by brick. Not with drama. Not with threats. Just strategy. My work as a consultant grew faster than expected. Maria introduced me to 2 more clients after seeing how I handled my first project. I was writing brand campaigns again, leading virtual teams, reclaiming a version of myself that had been buried under years of being the supportive wife. Money started flowing in. Real money. For the first time in years, I had a private bank account. One he didn't know existed, one he couldn't touch. And as I worked, I kept listening. People talk when they think you're quiet. A former friend of Aaron's reached out. Evan. We hadn't spoken in years. He said he'd heard what happened and wanted to check in. I could hear the guilt in his voice, like he already knew too much. I let him talk. He told me the business wasn't doing as well as Aaron pretended. There were whispers of lawsuits, former employees threatening to go public with unpaid invoices, vendors who weren't answering calls. Aaron had leveraged more than he could afford. The facade was cracking. Then Evan said something that made me sit up straight. You know he used one of your old accounts to pay for Alicia's condo, right? My mouth went dry. What account? The shared one. The credit card he said you never used. He rerouted it through the company once. I figured you knew. I didn't. But now I did. I thanked him and ended the call. Then I contacted Denise. She was a lawyer recommended by Maria. Smart. Blunt. Precise. I sent her everything. The receipts, the emails, the credit card records. I told her about the hotel bookings, the jewelry, the quiet money transfers. When she called me back, her voice was calm, almost amused. This isn't just infidelity, she said. This is marital fraud. And if the business is involved, that's tax evasion. We're not going to just file for divorce. We're going to audit him first. Her words weren't angry. They were surgical. She assembled a team, a forensic accountant, a private investigator, a digital analyst. I handed everything over. For weeks, I worked by day and gathered quietly by night. I mapped out dates, traced assets, compared lies to timelines. Every receipt he thought I'd never see became a piece of the puzzle. Every email he forwarded to her from his business account was another thread to pull. And while the team worked behind the scenes, I said nothing. I didn't reply to his occasional texts. I didn't answer his calls. I let him think I was still in the dark. That I was grieving. That I was gone. What he didn't realize was that the woman he thought he left behind had never really needed him. She just needed time. And now, with the truth in hand and a legal team preparing to strike, time was the one thing he no longer had. The day Denise filed the lawsuit and divorce petition, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt calm. Clean. Like something poisonous had finally been drained from my body. It was strategic. A combined filing, divorce on grounds of infidelity and marital fraud, accompanied by a request for a forensic audit of all shared and business-related financial activity over the last 2 years. Denise said it best. If he's built this house on lies, we're going to collapse every floor. Aaron received the papers 3 days later. He called me that evening. The first thing he said wasn't "how could you" or "I'm sorry." It was, "You're really doing this?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't let emotion through. "You already did it," I replied. "I'm just documenting it." He stammered, tried to deflect, said this wasn't necessary, that I was overreacting, that we could settle this quietly. But that's what he didn't understand. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't trying to get even. I wasn't even trying to hurt him. I was just making sure he couldn't hurt me again. He hung up. From that point forward, all communication went through attorneys. Within a week, his tone changed. His lawyer tried to push a quick settlement, something shallow, quiet, without digging too deep. Denise declined. She already had what she needed. The forensic accountant, a man named Martin with the coldest eyes I've ever seen, laid it out in black and white. Over $280,000 of marital assets had been rerouted or hidden in small transfers. Most of it used for personal luxuries, vacations, gifts, boutique services, and Alicia's apartment. Even worse, several of those payments had been filed under Aaron's business, marked as deductible expenses, which meant not only fraud against me but tax fraud. That's when things shifted from civil to criminal. The accountant flagged the findings. Denise forwarded them to an outside tax counsel, just in case the IRS got wind of it. We weren't filing anything yet. Just making sure we had every weapon sharpened before we stepped onto the battlefield. Aaron's panic became visible. He stopped posting online. Alicia went quiet. He changed his number. Meanwhile, I was living better than I had in years. My consulting work had grown so rapidly I hired a virtual assistant. I had more income than I'd had even at the height of my early career. And the apartment that once felt like exile? It felt like independence now. I bought a couch I loved. I planted herbs in the window box. I hosted my sister for wine and takeout one night, and for the first time in a long time, I laughed without restraint. Not because I had destroyed him. Because I had rebuilt me. Aaron, on the other hand, was crumbling. Denise received word through his legal team that multiple vendors had pulled contracts with his company. Rumors were circulating. Quiet ones. Whispers. But in business, whispers are enough. He'd built his identity on control, status, and the illusion of a perfect life. And now the truth was catching up. The life he traded me for, careless, shallow, performative, was collapsing under its own weight. And I hadn't even made my final move yet. Because the thing about building your life around someone else's silence is this. When they finally speak, everything you've hidden shakes loose. And I wasn't silent anymore. The pretrial conference was scheduled for mid-October. It wasn't a trial yet, just a formal meeting between both sides to present findings, clarify claims, and give the court a sense of how deep the waters ran. But by the time we walked into that room, Denise and I knew we weren't preparing for a discussion. We were preparing to win. I wore a navy suit. Nothing flashy, just strong. Neutral makeup. Simple earrings. Hair pulled back. I wanted to look like exactly who I had become. Composed, strategic, dangerous in the quietest way. Aaron was already seated when we arrived. He looked smaller. Not physically but emotionally. Deflated. He hadn't shaved. His suit didn't fit like it used to. He didn't look at me. Alicia wasn't there. His new attorney, a younger man who clearly didn't know the full scope of what he was walking into, opened with a shaky suggestion for mediation. Perhaps we can agree to a private settlement out of court, he said, barely able to meet Denise's eyes. Denise smiled. Just slightly. Before we talk resolution, she said, let's walk through the findings. She placed the forensic summary on the table like a weapon. Line by line, she walked them through the financial transfers. Amounts, dates, destinations. She showed evidence that joint funds had paid for Alicia's condo deposit, and for a trip to Milan labeled as a vendor summit that never existed. Then came the tax records. She slid a copy of a fake invoice Aaron had submitted as a business expense, created for a non-existent marketing consultant, who was actually Alicia. The document included a bank transfer to a personal account in her name. The judge's eyebrows rose. Aaron shifted in his seat. His lawyer looked pale. This is just the surface, Denise said calmly. We haven't subpoenaed additional corporate records yet. But we will. And we'll include outside audit recommendations if necessary. The judge leaned forward. Mr. Reynolds, he said to Aaron, you may want to take this seriously. Aaron nodded but said nothing. The rest of the conference was a blur. Legal forms, procedural deadlines, asset valuation. But I wasn't listening to the words. I was watching Aaron. Watching his hands clench. His jaw tighten. The exact moment his confidence gave way to fear. He had expected a bitter ex-wife throwing tantrums and throwing dishes. Instead he got a strategist with spreadsheets, a legal team, and airtight evidence. He was finally seeing me, not the version he remembered, the version he controlled, but the real one. The one who had spent years absorbing, enduring, learning. And now using. After the session, Denise and I stepped out into the hallway. She turned to me, adjusting her blazer. You've already won, she said. Now we just let the papers catch up. Later that night, I received a message through a mutual acquaintance. Aaron had laid off 2 senior staff at his company. Cut expenses. Cancelled a trip. Word was an investor had pulled out after quietly reading the court filing. No press coverage yet, but people were noticing. He didn't reach out to me. He knew better now. Because the woman he had tried to leave broken in a beige apartment? She didn't just recover. She reinvented. And now, everything he built on lies and arrogance was coming undone, one quiet truth at a time. 3 weeks after the pretrial conference, Aaron offered a settlement. It came by email through his attorney. A PDF attachment labeled, confidential proposal, and a few lines of text that sounded carefully neutral, like they were trying not to show how desperate he had become. The offer was weak. A portion of our joint savings, a small monthly support amount for 18 months, and a clause requesting mutual non-disparagement. No mention of the business fraud. No admission of guilt. And most importantly, a request to close this matter privately. Denise called me that afternoon. I could hear the amusement in her voice before she even said a word. "You've got him cornered," she said. He gave me the option. We could accept the deal and end it now. Take the money, sign the papers, and walk away. Or we could hold the line, press forward, and finish what we started. I didn't need time to think. "He tried to bury me," I said. "I'm not interested in his offers. He can keep the money. I want the record." Denise nodded on the other end. "Then we decline. We proceed. And we go public." I sent the rejection that night. Brief. Formal. "This offer is not acceptable. We will continue with the scheduled proceedings." The next morning I woke up to 3 missed calls from an unknown number. Then a message. It was from Aaron. "Please. Can we talk? Just us." I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I deleted the message without replying. He had every chance to speak to me like a human being before this began. But now, every word went through legal channels. That was the bed he made. The rest of the week his life unraveled further. The private investigator Denise had hired uncovered additional misuse of company funds. More vacations, more personal expenses hidden in vendor invoices. Alicia had received payments totaling over $70,000 across 6 months, all disguised as consulting fees. She wasn't listed anywhere as an employee or contractor. Not even a whisper of paperwork. The accountant added the findings to the final report and forwarded them to the court as part of our supplemental evidence. Then something I didn't expect happened. Alicia disappeared. Deleted her accounts. Left the condo. Unlisted her phone number. Apparently, someone had informed her that once the IRS got involved, and she could be subpoenaed too. I didn't celebrate. There was no joy in watching someone else implode. But I did feel something else. Freedom. The version of me Aaron thought he had control over no longer existed. The quiet, agreeable woman who made excuses for his behavior, who second-guessed her own instincts, who stood off to the side while he held the spotlight, she was gone. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was making decisions. I was leading my own life. And he was finally living in the shadow of what he tried to destroy. The final hearing was held on a Monday morning in early December. The air was crisp, the sky cloudless. It felt like a clean slate. I arrived early, dressed in quiet confidence. Not flashy, not performative, just composed. I wore a dark suit and a soft gray blouse. My hair was pulled back, my face calm. I didn't bring anyone with me. I didn't need support. I had already done the heavy lifting and today was just the conclusion. Aaron arrived just before the judge entered. He looked thinner than I remembered. Hollowed out. The arrogance that used to drip from every word and gesture was gone, replaced with a kind of quiet resignation. He didn't look at me. Not once. The courtroom was mostly silent as our attorneys made their final statements. Denise reviewed our findings. Methodical, thorough, precise. She spoke about the documented financial misconduct, the misuse of business funds, the illegal transfer of joint assets, and the deliberate effort to conceal income and liabilities. Aaron's lawyer didn't argue. He couldn't. There was nothing left to defend. When the judge spoke, his words were clear and firm. He acknowledged the extensive evidence of misconduct. He granted me full claim to all remaining shared assets, a significant share of Aaron's business equity, and a legal ruling that his actions constituted fraud, entitling me to restitution beyond the standard divorce terms. But what mattered more than the numbers was the record. It was on file now, permanent, unaltered. The man who tried to replace me, silence me, erase me had been seen for who he truly was. After the hearing, I walked out of the courthouse alone. The wind was sharp, but I felt warm. I didn't feel victorious. I felt at peace. Later that evening, I returned home to the apartment that had once felt like exile and now felt like sanctuary. My things were there, chosen, not inherited. A couch I loved. Shelves lined with books I'd bought for myself. Candles that smelled like comfort, not like compromise. I made tea. I sat near the window. I watched the city move under fading light. I thought about how much I had lost, and how much more I had found in its place. The strength I didn't know I had. The clarity I thought was gone. The power of building something from the ground up without needing anyone's permission. Aaron never called again. I don't know where he went, or what he tells people now about what happened. It doesn't matter. Because in the end I didn't ruin his life. I just stopped letting him control mine. And once I did that, the rest unraveled all on its own. I wasn't supposed to recover. But I didn't just recover. I rose. And I didn't need revenge to do it. I only needed the truth, and the will to finally stand in it.